Apparently, NFL executives were shading the Lions, shading Brad Holmes. This is via The Athletic. And I have some comments here from NFL GMs saying some things about Brad Holmes. And I want you guys' thoughts, chat. Feel free to chime in. I'll read some comments as well. But this was via The Athletic. And we'll get to some quotes here. And we'll get to the first one. We'll get to the first one here at the top. Okay, this is from Joe Chap, Detroit Joe Chap. So we appreciate him for putting the info out so we can read it. But the first line here, is it a good sign that Detroit is behaving more like Kansas City? So this is the quote from by the way, it's funny. All these executives never put a name on it. It's just how it always is. They never, ever, ever are going to put a name on it, but they're going to say what they want to say. They said, quote, they fixed a problem, but at what cost? End quote. An executive said, quote, you are never one player away. End quote. The next quote they had was, I like both those corners they drafted, but they gave up a lot. Another executive said, I felt like they could have waited at 29 and maybe they gotten their guy or taken Kool-Aid McKinstry or Nate Wiggins. End quote. Here's the next line. Detroit is taking a swing, and you have to admire teams willing to do that, another executive said. One executive thought the Lions trading a 2025 third-round pick to the Jets for University of British Columbia tackle. Okay, hold on. Now it's getting personal. Giovanni Manu
for sure.
At 126, and then using another fourth-rounder for combination safety / running back Sione Vaki, bordered in arrogance.
That's the bad comment. Like, what are we doing here? You can call that out, but the arrogance
The next thing was they are really good, so they have earned that right, an executive said.
Thank you.
It's a little different from the arrogance coming out of Atlanta. Detroit has had a lot of success drafting offensive line.
Can you scroll up real quick?
Period.
Can you go to the top comment?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we were gonna get there, Klotz. Like, what are we talking about? Offensive line. I mean, they look at the other positions. But anyway, what's up, Boone?
Just the top. This is the one I want to address off the bat. We've had this conversation a lot. They fixed a problem, but at what cost? You are never one player away. I'm going to throw this out there. They gave up a third-round pick for Terrion Arnold to move up. They didn't give up a first next year, a second. They still have like 7 or 8 draft picks in next year's draft. They still have a load of draft picks next year. Giving up a haul for one player. And by the way, you guys know me too. I'm so far off the one player away thing. Like when the trade deadline came around and everyone was like, we're one player away from going to win a Super Bowl. Wrong. Like, and you guys might argue and say, yeah, maybe we were because we lost to the 49ers. I don't think that would have done anything because guess what? Chase Young went to the 49ers and they still lost the Super Bowl. So congratulations on that. But the one player, like, no, they're getting their guys. They traded a third-round pick to go get a dude that's going to be one of the best defensive players in this class. Dude, whoever that executive is, I bet you he gets fired in the next year or two. He doesn't even have a job in 365 days. So I don't even know what he's talking out of his mouth for.
I mean, I don't know who this GM was. I'm going to take a guess. And this is just random thought.
Ryan Poles. Loser.
No, this is more Brian Gunst. All right, whatever the hell he says his last name. This is more Packers. You know, they wanted a certain somebody potentially. Shout out Tom Grossi. They wanted a potential, maybe a Terrion Arnold, and they were a little upset they didn't land him, and now they're playing boohoo, upset. I don't know. I hate the fact that it's always anonymous executive. But here's the thing I don't understand is like, what does this even mean? Like and this is the thing, when you're great at what you do in any space, there's always going to be people that are in that space that are watching you get that praise, watching you reach that level of success. And there's always going to be bitterness. There's always going to be jealousy. That's just how it works. And Brad Holmes, I think, is dealing with that because the rise of Brad Holmes to when he started to now, he is in that class, I believe, of John Lynch, Howie Roseman, Les Snead, the best GMs, Brett Veach, some of the best GMs, even Schneider from the Seahawks. He's in that tier of GM. Now, with that comes this. So it honestly, to me, guys, I take this as a compliment because it means Brad Holmes is here. Like no one who's talking about GMs that are with franchises that don't have this type of success, that aren't drafting, they don't have a hit rate like Brad Holmes. You don't hear anything. No one cares what's going on in Atlanta.
I mean, no one cares what's going on with other franchises. I mean, who cares? The Browns, you brought up the Browns. Anybody. No one cares. So, like this to me, guys, I'll take it as a compliment. It means Brad Holmes doing something right. And these comments just don't make any sense. I mean, the third round, he gave up picks to get, his guys. And typically when he does go get his guys, works pretty well for him. So I'm confused. I mean, you can pull up, go back and look at all three. How many drafts has he had now? 3, 4?
This is 4.
4. The hit rate is unbelievable. It's just ignorance. That's what this is, fellas.
Yeah, especially when you look at like Minnesota and considering like how much they gave up to move up what would be 7 picks to get Dallas Turner, especially when you look, they had Jared Verse on the board, so maybe they could have sat tight and waited for one of them to fall to him. But then you look at what the lines were sitting at after the second round. They didn't pick for like 100 straight selections. So Brad trading up, I think, is what the Lions needed to do if they wanted to get the players that they wanted in the draft. So I think calling it arrogance is just pure ignorance, in my opinion. I think he did what the Lions needed to do. This was a Brad Holmes type of draft. If you like the drafts previous to this, then I don't get what the problem is with this draft. I don't understand it.
Again, guys, and I'm going to make this point too, is I do like where they bring up the whole point of he trained up for Manu, basically a third round to get into the fourth or whatever, the Vaki thing, all of that. I will say, maybe if you broke the trade down, you could say, oh, he gave up a little too much. But to the point, if you go down a little bit later, that a different exec kind of brought up is Brad has earned the right to do those sorts of things. Like the Falcons trading up one spot, not the Falcons. Who was it that traded up one spot? The Vikings for JJ McCarthy, and basically giving up everything they did just to go up one spot when you knew who was it they traded with? The Jets. You knew the Jets weren't going to take a quarterback, but you essentially like just hoping no one else. Like they kind of, when you look at things like that, Brad at the end of the day has earned the right to be able to make those trades because he's found so many of his guys and so many dudes in his draft classes. To where, like, if Brad wasn't finding guys and he was struggling finding talent and he made a trade like that, I think we would be having a different conversation right now. I'd be like, why did you give up a third for a fourth, a guy who was projected to go later in the draft? Why did you do that? You see what I'm saying? So I think it's like circumstance, and that's where some of these GMs, I don't think, like, these execs don't realize that they've done so good and Brad's done so good. I think Doc said it yesterday. Brad only picked in like 1 or 2 of his actual spots in this draft class. He's always moving. He's always going to move because he loves his guys and he gets them. So let Brad just keep doing what Brad does, man. And if these execs want to say something, like I said before, half of these execs anyways are going to be out of a job probably in the next 365 days. So they can keep talking, keep doing that. They're probably going to be fired in their whole regime too. So unless they start drafting like Brad Holmes.
Yeah, and again, like it means more with quarterbacks, obviously, because Josh Allen, or you bring up the Kansas City Chiefs. Any team that trades up for a quarterback, if that quarterback pans out to who you believe he will be, no one gives a damn what you gave up. Nobody. The only reason why people bring up what the 49ers did with Trey Lance is because he was a bust. Right? It's because he was a bust. If Trey Lance panned out and was really good, no one would revisit that trade and look at the 49ers and John Lynch and say, you guys are a bunch of idiots. But that's not just quarterbacks to me. Terrion Arnold, they gave up. It's not even as much as these other teams have given up for other players, but just giving up draft capital to move up. If Terrion Arnold is who Brad thinks he is and who we all think he is, which is a damn good corner, even some would say number 1 corner in the class, nobody's going to remember what they gave up. Nobody.
Do you guys remember what the 49ers gave up to go get to make that trade? To get Trey Lance? I don't remember, but guess what? John Lynch has been so good at his job that whatever they have to do for all these these moves that they make in the draft, no one cares, dude. No one cares. As long as you're putting together a good team, that's all it is. That's all Brad's been doing too. That's at the bottom line. If you're making your moves, you make your moves as long as you're bringing in talent, which he does.
And big shout out. I mean, look at that. Sheen Coffin. Thank you for the $20. Says, love the show, fellas. Absolute dogs. Keep up the grind.
Let's go.
Can't wait for the season to start all aboard the Booner path.
Here we go. Hold on.
Shout out to you, Coffin. We appreciate the love, man. Your
Booner path in the chat, baby. Let's go.
Oh, yeah, baby.
Now you got the shades going. So you know what? Now you got him fired up. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. I just, and it's not, again, you can have your opinion. Opinions are like something. You guys know the saying. Everyone has
I don't
one.
actually.
Opinions are like buttholes, Booner. Everybody has one. Okay.
That's right.
So he can have his opinion.
Actually, one person doesn't have one.
It's fair.
The leader of North Korea.
Yeah. But
It's true, Booner.
that is. Yeah, that's fair. Shout out, that's a great movie, by the way. But it's not that okay. He could say whatever he wants.
Actually,
At
it's
the end
real
of the
life.
day, it's just like the arrogance part. Like, oh, trading up to get Giovanni Manu and Sione Vaki. A little bit of arrogance from that. What? To get what? Because Sione Vaki wasn't, a premier, at least before we know anything about him. Again, these guys have not played, so we don't know what Sione Vaki is. We just know what he was in college. But because of the player, he didn't excel at one position. He could play multiple positions. He was good at playing those positions. That was an arrogance. That was like a pump your chest out pick. Like, what are we doing? I like that dude, and we've all agreed. Like, he could be a contributor, certainly a special teams contributor, but I think he can do more than that. Like, I don't think there's no arrogance in getting guys that you believe in, or maybe guys that are high on your board. Like, that's just called, I don't know, being a good general manager. Like, that's just what I took from it. If you like a certain player and you go get him, what the hell's the problem? I don't understand. Doesn't make any sense to me. Like, Howie Roseman makes trades. All these GMs make trades to get their guys.
Especially like in the third, fourth rounds. Like, I could hear it if it was like trading up in the first round for a reach or a second round for the reach, but they got Terrion Arnold, who wasn't expected to be outside the top 20, let alone the top 15, and Rakestraw, who's projected to be like a middle of the second round, even late first round type of guy, potentially to the right team. So to say that he's being, what would they say, arrogant? I could see if they went up and they traded top 15 for like Chop Robinson and saying that's our guy, we know more than you, but I don't think he's being arrogant in any type of way.
Yeah. Brad's allowed to have this chip on his shoulder too, by the way. Like Brad's allowed to make these moves. I don't know how many times we have to say it. The arrogance and all that man for 3 straight seasons, his first 3 years as a GM in the NFL, has dominated every draft. Probably in every single draft he's been in, he's had a top 3 draft class in that draft. Mm-hmm. And you could argue almost everyone could be number 1 every single year. And now he's getting to a point to where, hey, we can move a little. We don't need to go out and get dudes the whole time. We can go get young development players that are going to be really good. And that's what he did with these guys. And he's still got the Rakestraw and the Terrion Arnold and the Wingo and guys that potentially could play instantly. It's crazy to me that when someone has so much success, that people have to start looking on the opposite side of it and be like, well, something's got to be really wrong with this. Something like he's too arrogant to start making these trades. No, let that man go out there and work. If he's going to trade up a third to go get a guy he loves in the fourth, let him do it. You still have picks next year. Why are we acting like Brad Holmes doesn't know what he's doing? He's built one of the best rosters in the entire NFL with the Detroit Lions, a franchise who's never had a great roster in their whole franchise history, and he's done it within a 3-year span.
And also,
I'd love to see some people do that.
If Brad Holmes, if you're a GM and if you're watching the draft play out and you're impatient because you're worried that players you love won't be there, then go get them. I don't understand what the problem is with that. Like it's arrogance to go up trade for somebody that maybe other teams weren't interested in. Well, I don't know. Brad Holmes has kind of done that, and I don't know. It's kind of worked out. It's kind of found some pretty good football players doing that. I don't know, boys. Sounds like just. Hey,
how many trades did Howie Roseman make that one day on Saturday? Or was it Saturday, Jeff? We were sitting there doing the stream, and he just kept trading. He did like 7 trades in one day.
Yeah, he was wheeling and dealing.
Oh, how arrogant of him! Oh my gosh, how arrogant of him going out there and making some trades and going out there and finding his guys. How arrogant! Oh my gosh, Howie Roseman, that guy.